Have you boosted your business with Lenovo Pro yet? Become a Lenovo Pro member for free today and unlock access to Lenovo's exclusive business store for technology, expert advisors, and essential products and services designed just for you. Visit Lenovo.com/Lenovo Pro to sign up for free. That's Lenovo.com/Lenovo Pro. Lenovo. Unlock new AI experiences with Lenovo's ThinkPad X1 Carbon, powered by Intel Core Ultra processors.
Hey, it's Kim Commando Today, your daily podcast to keep you up to date with all things digital and beyond. And I'd love to have you be a part of our podcast. You can make an appointment to speak with me. Just head over to commando.com, and on the top right, there's a button that says Email Kim. Fill that out, and that's it.
Hey, today we have, oh my gosh, he's such an amazing person. I mean, if you've ever thought I'm wasting money, I need to save money, then of course you probably tuned into Clark Howard's fantastic radio show or amazing podcast. And so I called Clark because I'm like, you know what? So many people want to know, what are the insider secrets to really saving money on airfare? For example, this past week, Hopper came out and they said, if you want to save money on your airline tickets, is that you need to buy those tickets now for Thanksgiving because the best day of the week is a Wednesday and it's between 21 days and 58 days. And then Google comes out and says, no, it's 71 days before departure. And of course, I travel all the time. I mean, I counted up, I've been to 36 different countries. And I admit that I'm not really the best person at saving money on airfare because I'm like, you know what, just get me to Tokyo or get me to Paris or wherever it is, on the shortest flight. That's always my thing, the shortest duration. So anyway, joining us is Clark. Clark, you look fabulous. It's so nice to see you.
Well, it's so good to see you. And, we've tried to get together over the years and I always mess it up, don't I?
No, you don't always mess it up. Not at all. Not at all. And
by the way, what you just said, my wife is with you 100%. She can't stand that I'll route us who knows how to get wherever to save money. And she's like, I want to go nonstop. And I'm like, no, you miss all the adventure when you go nonstop.
Oh, no, Clark. No, don't tell me about adventure when you're sitting there and they're like, I just want to let you know, everybody at gate 78, the flight has been canceled. You're like, oh, no. Or they come out and they say, you know what, we'll give you $1,000 in vouchers if you don't get on this plane right now. And I'm like, no, not me. I am on that plane. I am on that plane 100%.
And my wife knew from very early, just when we were dating, that when they'd call for volunteers, I was at the counter. Because there's always another flight. There's always another day you can go. And so, you and I are opposite poles. I am all about the price, and convenience I don't care about.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, because you know what? When we went to Tokyo,
isn't it great, by the way?
Oh my gosh. Everybody needs to go to Tokyo. What was your favorite thing about Tokyo?
Pretty much everything. And by the way, I got to tell you, I'm not an adventurous eater, and I just went with it. And the food was so fantastic. It's so safe. It's so clean. And for you, if you went to Osaka also, all the electronic shops must have been in heaven with all those places.
Oh, it was crazy. But my favorite part was Nara, where the deer bowed to you, which that was just crazy to me. But
it's
you
pretty
talk about
special being in Nara. Yeah,
it is. But the city is clean. It's like you mentioned the word safe. And because of the time difference is that it was 10 o'clock at night in Tokyo. But of course, it was 1 p.m. in Phoenix or whatever it was. And so I decided, you know what, I need to go for a run because I got off that plane. I'm like, I need to get some exercise. And so I said to my husband, Barry, he said, what are you doing? You're putting on your running shoes. I said, I'm going for a run. And he's like, you can't go for a run. It's 10 o'clock at night in Tokyo. And so I said, let's call down to the concierge and maybe it's not safe. And so they said, where are you going to go? I said, I'm just going to go from the hotel to the Imperial Palace and back. And they said, I said, and they said, it's about 5 miles. I said, that's perfect. And then my husband was like, is she going to be safe? And they're like, 1000%. She's going to be all right. So I went on a run and there were people walking. Anyways, lovely. So let's talk about airfare. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Aside from making 8 stops between Los Angeles or Atlanta to get me to Berlin or to Chicago, what is like the secret sauce? I mean, is it like the day of the week? Is it how maybe you buy your ticket like 24 hours before the flight, or you buy it, I don't know, 7 weeks before the flight?
Right. So it's completely different international and domestic. Most of their travel's domestic. So let me start with domestic.
For sure.
Rule number 1 for domestic, biggest mistake people make is they do their domestic flight searches round trip. Never, not ever do a domestic fare search round trip. Because what happens is first you'll see the screen that shows the fares on all the different airlines for your flight, and you'll pick one. So let's say you pick, since you fly a lot out of Phoenix, let's say you pick American Airlines. And then you're picking your return flight. Well, now it's going to limit you to searches of American flights coming back. And you're going to be guaranteed to overpay almost every time when you do searches for domestic flights round trip, because domestic fares are set as one way. So you want to do your search each direction where you put in your going flight. You see all the choices on all the airlines. You do a multi-fare search. You mentioned Hopper. Google Flights is excellent.
Sure.
And you see what everybody's got now, by the way, not on Hopper yet, but on Google, you'll actually see the fares on Southwest, which you never used to see. And Southwest flies more passengers in the United States than any other airline. So you want to see the Southwest stuff too. And so you do the search one way. As far as time, you were talking about the debate where Google says this far in advance and Hopper says that. One of the most important things with domestic is it's got to be at least 21 days in advance to get a good fare. Almost always you go less than 21 days and the airlines kill you. They just destroy your wallet. So I would say that somewhere around, if I were to compromise between what Hopper said and Google, about 6 weeks out seems to be a pretty good sweet spot, because the airline's predictive analysis has a real good feel based on historical averages, how likely their loads are going to be, whatever, on that travel date about 6 weeks out. And if they're going to cut prices, that's a good window when I find you're going to see them. Day of the week, like you talked about, buying tickets on Wednesday or whatever, I don't see that as a very important pattern.
Easter is easy with Lin's. Order your entire meal from our deli or find a variety of exclusive springtime treats from our bakery. Lin's has something for every bunny. Visit our website for inspiration, recipes, and more at linsgrocery.com.
Now, when you do buy tickets on American, okay, and I guess it's the same for Delta. I fly a lot of American because that's, they come in and out of Phoenix a lot. So you get that fare, and then they take you to the next screen. It's like, oh, do you want a seat too? And you're like, right. Yeah, I want a seat. And then you can have this seat for $25, this seat for $75, or this seat for $50, or you don't pick a seat, and then you're like, okay, well, so what's the deal with that?
So the whole idea is they use the fare as a loss leader, and then they got you in their building, they got you in the hunt, and they're going to try to sell you every possible extra option they can. And baggage is the obvious one, but it's everything else, including seat assignment, early boarding, a variety of different things, because the money is made in the ancillaries. And the ancillaries, the extras, aren't subject to the federal tax. So there's a lot of financial incentives for the airlines to offer a lower fare and then charge you so much for all the extras. And so the only way you avoid that, since you fly so much out of Phoenix, you're killing me that you're flying the wrong airline out of Terminal 4. You should be on Southwest, because day in and day out, you're going to save so much money because they're not going to have all the extras. And so American, United, Delta, the 3 full fare airlines, everything about their business model is sell up, sell up, sell up. So the fare is just the opening whistle, really, about what you're going to pay.
I know. It's like, no, I'm going to sit on the wing. Okay. I want to
I will sit. I mean, Ryanair, which is the biggest airline in Europe, tried to get approval to have standing seats because they could shove a lot more people in. It would be an option on the plane. If it was a flight up to 2 hours, you could stand. And I was like all for that, because I would stand for the 2 hours to save money. But I'm there on the price spectrum. Most people aren't anywhere close to where I am, as cheap as I am.
Of course. I mean, you and I would never travel together. I'm just telling you that right now. Because the reason why, let me just tell you, to get from Phoenix to Santa Barbara, okay, on American Airlines, you go to Terminal 4, you get on the plane, and you go from Phoenix to Santa Barbara. Now, let's talk about Southwest. Okay. And that flight, by the way, is like an hour and 15 minutes. Okay. So now I want to go to Santa Barbara from Phoenix on the Southwest. I have to go from Phoenix to Las Vegas, and I got to sit there and play the slot machines. And it's going to cost me more money because I'm going to lose money while I'm sitting there. Okay. For about 2 hours. And then I have to get on another plane. So the whole trip, instead of being like an hour and a half, it's like 4 hours.
Right. I mean, you're completely right. I mean, I don't have any guilt about spending money on that nonstop. That's just fine. I'm with you.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Okay. So,
but can I talk about international? Because international.
Yes, I was just going to say,
different.
Let's talk about let's talk about international.
So international, the fares are generally round trip fares. So your search has to be completely different. Most important thing with international, because you're dealing with bigger stakes, bigger dollars, is you've got to use a fare calendar where you can see, based on different days of the week going, different days of the week returning, what the best deals are going to be. And these fare calendars are your friend. You can use them for domestic too, but
for sure.
People have more flexibility about that. Usually if they're going to Asia, going to Australia, New Zealand, going to Europe, South America. So you can use the calendar as your friend or enemy. And the price differences, especially for people, often international, people are using points. The benefit of the price calendar on points for international travel is huge. And the international fares, people tend to look way farther out. But I want to tell you something about the international. You book an international ticket. Let's say you book it 4 months out, 6 months out, because people, they plan, they're excited, they're going to go on this trip.
For sure.
And they set it and forget it. They bought the fare, they think they're done. But today, on most tickets, you don't pay a change fee. So I want you to reshop that international fare and particular windows. I want you to reshop it 8 weeks out, and I want you to reshop it 4 weeks out. And you'll find that most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, you're going to get a lower fare when you reshop that ticket. Now, the beauty is, like you being an American Airlines loyalist. So let's say you bought an American Airlines ticket to Asia, you bought one to Europe or wherever, and you find the cheaper fare later, whatever class of service you're going in, coach, premium economy, business class, whatever. You find that cheaper fare later, you take it, and then you have a credit you can use at no cost, no fees for future travel. And the reshop on international, I cannot stress enough how important those two things are, using the calendar as your friend and reshopping the fares later.
I've never heard that, and I've never done that. I mean, how much money are you talking you can save?
So let's say you're going in coach, you could cut the fare by hundreds of dollars. In business class, you can cut the fare by thousands of dollars. Now, I need to confess something to you.
What's that?
My wife and I have a deal that we've had since 2006. I fly so much, I have the companion pass on Southwest, and she flies free with me all year long domestic.
Okay.
And she doesn't like the experience, the lining up and all that. Southwest is going away from the lining up, but it's not her thing, right? But the deal I made with her is we go business class when we go international in return, because we don't do that many international trips. And we go in domestic, we go Southwest. And she flies free every flight all year long. So that's a fair trade. Because I'm also getting a lie flat bed too, right? So recently we were going to Japan, and when I reshopped it, our fare fell by more than half for our business class, which was over $4,000 a ticket. The fare dropped. And
that is crazy.
I rebooked 2.5 weeks before we went and cut the fare by more than half.
Gosh, now I feel like I've been wasting a lot of money.
Well, I mean, this is what I do. My whole brain is wired that way. I've had my car broken into 6 times in my life because I park in bad neighborhoods to have free parking. I mean, I am that cheap.
We have a mutual friend. His name's Craig Kitchen. And, and so I'm talking to him today, and he's like, so what do you have on tap? I say, I'm talking to Clark. He goes, that man saves so much money. He's like, oh.
And Craig is also the best dresser either of us have ever met.
I know. And it's just so polished. Such a gentleman, 100% all the time. And he's one of these people, folks, I know where it's kind of like an insider talk about a mutual friend, but nobody has anything ever bad to say about Craig. I mean,
isn't that great for someone to be that successful and everybody likes him?
Yes, everybody loves him. He's just a fabulous person. Getting back to price. So Google has this now with Google Flights, the lowest price guarantee. And now, so is that something to tap into?
Absolutely, but it's not as important as it used to be. For the point I made that happened post-COVID is none of the airlines have gotten greedy yet with starting to charge the change fees. And the change fee was the villain. It was the enemy of being able to reshop fares. So manually, you can wait for Google to say, okay, this fare went down automatically, and Google says they're going to give you the money. But the important thing often is when the cheaper fare comes along, it may not be on the same airline you originally booked. In your case, you're only going to want that cheaper fare on American, and then the Google offer becomes valuable. But if you're truly a free agent like I am, where I reshop and I'm reshopping everybody, and that cheaper fare comes along, I'm going to have to find it myself. And that's why the calendar of putting on there, I'm going in 6 weeks, I need to check that fare again. I'm going in 3 weeks, I need to check that fare again. And it doesn't take long. It just takes a minute to do a search on Hopper or Google or whatever search engine you like.
Easter is easy with Lin's. Order your entire meal from our deli or find a variety of exclusive springtime treats from our bakery. Lin's has something for every bunny. Visit our website for inspiration, recipes, and more at linsgrocery.com.
Now, let's talk about using mileage for flights, because it used to be a pain in the neck. It used to be such a hassle. But my husband has an American Airlines credit card, so we rack up a ton of points on that. So we were always using those points. But it's really simple. You just go to the website and you say, I want to pay with miles, and it's really easy. Is there like an insider secret about using mileage?
So it's not an insider secret, but it's a fact. The airlines have gone to dynamic demand pricing on their points. So it used to be if you were redeeming a free trip to wherever, you were going to have a mileage chart, and it would show, coach is this many points, and premium economy is this many. If it's an international flight, business class is this many. If it's domestic, first class is this many more. Now it's all dynamic demand. So you never know if the use of points is a good deal or a bad deal unless you calculate how many points you're having to use and what's the value of those points. A lot of times when you redeem points on an airline, you're only getting 0.7 of a cent of value. And that's a ripoff, because you could just have a cash back card now that pays 2 cents on everything. And the airlines are generally only giving you 1/3 of that. So the trigger point of when you know when it's good to use points or whether it's good to use money is if you're getting good value for your points. And I use the baseline that you want 2%. You want if you can just with a simple cashback card get 2% cash back, you want the same value at least from using points. A lot of times on American, United, and Delta, particularly if you want to go front of the plane, you're going to get lousy value for your points. But if you use one of their international partners, which all three have, or if you have a multi-airline card, you fly on one of the Asian airlines or you fly on one of the European airlines, or it could be Qatar, Emirates, or Etihad, you'll pay much less equivalent in points than you would with American, United, and Delta.
Boy, that's really fascinating. Now, see, Barry justifies the American airline card because it gets him into the lounge whenever we fly American.
Yeah.
And I'm telling him, we kind of get that perk with American Express anyway, because American Express now has their own lounges, which, brings me to another question. Are you better off doing your own flights or calling somebody like American Express and saying, here, just find me a ticket?
So if you fly regularly, you're fine doing your own. If you fly infrequently, you might find there's going to be an advantage using a booking outlet like using American Express to book or a traditional travel agent. You may have to pay fees, but if you are an infrequent traveler, and particularly if you're doing a more complicated itinerary, it would be like, they say, with doctors, you don't want to be your own doctor. When you're booking travel, you don't want to book your own travel if you're not an experienced person. And that's when, if it's complicated. If you're just going from, Chicago to Baltimore, you can book your travel. You don't need a travel agent. If you're booking Chicago to Beijing and you don't routinely travel internationally, especially to Asia, you want an agent.
The American Express has a perk of a airport butler. And I kind of sat there and I was like, what exactly does an airport butler do? Okay. So on our last trip, Barry and I landed in San Francisco at 10:30 a.m. for a 12:45 departure to Haneda. And Ian our son was traveling from Los Angeles to San Francisco. His flight was supposed to land at 11 a.m. Okay. Notice I said supposed to.
Right.
Okay. So his flight, he calls me, he's like, he said, I'm screwed. I mean, we haven't even taken off. And it looks like, we're not going to land until 11:45. Okay. So 11:45 turns into 12. Now, keep in mind, we're at 12:45. We're leaving for Tokyo. Okay. So at 12:15, I said, you know what? We have this airport butler. So all of a sudden, and then about 5 minutes later, the airport butler shows up. We were flying on Air Japan. And she says, I explain everything that's going on. She goes over to the ticket agent at Japan Airlines and explains the whole situation. And now Ian's plane is not going to land until 12:30. Okay. So Barry and I go over to the gate, and I explain to the woman, kind of what's going on. The gate agent, who's very nice, and the airport butler's there, and luckily she speaks Japanese. Okay, and they're going back and forth, and the gate agent says to me, "You and your husband need to get on the plane." And I said, "No, I'm not getting on the plane without my son because there's no flight until tomorrow afternoon." Bottom line is that by using the airport butler, we were able to, Japan Airlines sent a car on the tarmac to get Ian at the gate at 12:45. Okay, walked him through with the airport butler through getting from a domestic terminal to the international terminal in San Francisco. Getting him through TSA, who, because he has a new passport with 2 pictures, that they said that this was a fake passport. Then Japan Airlines sends another car to get him through at TSA with the airport butler, brings him over to the gate, and at 1:20, we get on the plane. And everybody on that plane gave us the dirtiest looks. Like,
I bet they did.
like,
Oh, man.
You 3 are the reason. But what was interesting about this is that while we were standing there, basically on the ramp waiting for Ian before the jetway, and I looked down and I saw like 12 people standing at the nose of the plane, just with their hands folded at their waist. And I said to the gate agent, I said, "What are they doing?" And she said, "Just watch." She said, when you're on the plane, I want you to watch. And so we get on the plane, and I look, and as we are going away from the gate in San Francisco, all 12 people bowed to the plane. And I said to the person, the flight attendant, whatever you want to call him now, and I said, "What's that?" She goes, "Oh, they're wishing us a safe journey." And I was like, and she said, "And when you land in Haneda, you will see the same thing." And I was just astounded by that. But anyway, so if you have an airport butler and you have a problem, I'm just saying,
I don't have an airport butler.
Oh, come on, Clark.
No airport butler.
Not for you? All right, so
yeah, Southwest doesn't offer.
They don't have airport butlers? How about Ryanair? How about Spirit? Does Spirit Airlines have an air?
We flew Ryanair recently in Europe, and it was actually a great experience.
Was it? Where'd you go?
Yeah, and it was cheap. We were flying within a domestic flight within Italy. We went to Brindisi, Italy, if you know where that is.
I don't know where that is.
The heel of the boot on the Adriatic.
Oh, got it. So how much cheaper was Ryanair?
I think we paid €22 for the flight,
oh, gosh.
which was like $24. So it was more than I like to pay, but what I had
$24. Oh my gosh. All right. So is Spirit Airlines any good in the United States?
No.
Or by their No.
And
Okay.
and they unfortunately have been very important price competition, but they're in a heap of trouble, and there's a good chance they're not going to survive.
Oh, okay.
That's not a secret.
Okay.
They have not run a good operation. The difference is, our deep discounters in the United States have not grown in market share like deep discounters have elsewhere in the world. Because you want to know who the most reliable airline is in Europe? Ryanair. The biggest airline is in Europe? Ryanair. Who's the cheapest airline to fly in Europe? Ryanair. People may hate them, but they know they're reliable and they fly them. If Spirit had been really, really a well-run airline, they'd be huge and making money hand over fist. You gotta give people the basics. You got to run on time. You got to be safe. You got to be reliable. And they've been safe, but they've not been on time. They've not been reliable. And they're not very friendly.
No. I have a friend of mine who flew them, and they were just nasty mean, and then they charge you for to bring a bag online or a bag on the plane and another bag. And if you want to use the bathroom, it's $5. I mean, or not.
No, you don't have to pay for the bathroom.
Okay, but it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right. One last question.
Yeah.
Is when you start looking at domestic, can you really save money? Like, for example, by going to Midway versus Chicago O'Hare? I mean, is it worth looking at like community airports?
You're asking one of the most important questions for people that are price sensitive, because there's more and more emphasis on airlines flying to smaller regional airports. It's the whole business model of an airline most people haven't heard of called Avelo, and another airline most people haven't heard of called Breeze, and then a third airline more people are aware of, it's been around a long time, called Allegiant. These three airlines, what they do is they fly to small, out-of-the-way airports, easy to get into them, easy to get out of them, parking's cheap or free. They don't have the air traffic control delays like your son had at LAX, waiting in a long line to ever be able to take off. And so looking regionally for fares is really important. And if you're really, really price sensitive, you want to look up, where do Allegiant, where do Breeze, and where do Avelo fly, and see these out-of-the-way airports they fly to. And you may find a flight combination that you had no idea could save you so much money. I was flying from Florida to New York City last year, and I took Breeze because they fly into white planes that I would not have normally looked at, but the fare was a fourth of what it was on anybody else.
Wow.
So your question about Midway versus O'Hare, or, Love Field versus DFW, or in the Phoenix metro area between Phoenix, Mesa, and flying out of Sky Harbor, these things really matter, and they'll save you big money if you look at things you don't automatically think of.
We're all looking for ways to save more and spend less, but there are everyday essentials you just can't cut out of your budget, like gas and groceries. Here's the money back hack I use to get cash back on those everyday purchases and more. It's called Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. And who doesn't? That's why it's my favorite secret weapon for saving money. I got $10 back on groceries and 55 cents back on every gallon of gas. I even got cash back at Chipotle and Starbucks. Upside is free to use. Just download the app, claim an offer for what you're about to buy, and get paid. Get 3 times more cash back compared to credit card rewards or loyalty programs. And Kim Commando listeners get a special bonus. Download the free Upside app and use promo code KIM to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas using code KIM. Download the free Upside app. Use code KIM.
And then now we also have some other airlines that have popped up. And I don't want to say, well, not really airlines as much as they're flying under the charter regulations and getting around some of the... Yes, JSX. Where JSX, for me, it flies from Scottsdale Airport to Burbank or to Carlsbad. On the East Coast, they go from Fort Lauderdale to the Hamptons. And, of course, you're going to pay from Scottsdale to Burbank. It's $600 round trip versus Southwest. That could be $100. But there's no TSA.
But not only is there no TSA, Kim, the other thing is the service on JSX. It is better than domestic first on the 3 full-fare airlines, on American, United, and Delta. And American, United, and Delta are using every bit of lobbying power they have in Washington with both elected officials and the FAA to try to get JSX shut down, because they don't want JSX to exist, because they know it's a better product than they offer in every way, better service than they offer, and better prices than they offer for premium seats. And they hate it, hate it, hate it. And I would, if I were a betting person, with the extreme power that American United and Delta combined have in Washington, I will be surprised if JSX is still allowed to operate. But they are a superior product. They are, and anybody who lives anywhere where you can fly JSX, if you're a premium seat passenger in domestic travel, you want to fly JSX.
I fly it. It's phenomenal. It is. I mean, I've gotten there. I think the flight from Scottsdale to Burbank was, I think, left at 7:30 in the morning. I slid into that gate at 7:15 because I overslept. And they're like, "You're a little late." I'm like, "Sorry." And they're like, "Oh, no problem. No problem. Here, let us take your bag." And there's always on the left seat or the right seat, there's always an older captain, probably early retirement from one of the major airlines. And then you have a younger co-pilot. And everybody is just lovely. There's, like you mentioned, and do you want a cocktail? Do you want you want something extra? And
Did
you're
you
not
want
all
a cocktail at 7:15 in the morning, really?
No, I don't want a cocktail, but they did offer it. I'm not a day drinker. I have a lot of friends who are day drinkers, and because we'll be out on the boat or whatever, and I'm like, I just, it's like I'll have my lemon drop martini, but it has to be towards sunset. I'm not just one of those people. I can't do that. Well, Clark, it's such a pleasure to finally sit down with you and talk to you. And, we are different in the airfare category. But I'm certain that, what I'd like to talk to you about are credit cards at some point. What are the best credit cards? And because, that also gets really confusing. I mean, is it worth getting the airline credit card or a different type of credit card?
Almost always it's not worth it having the airline card. So that's a tease for when we talk about credit cards. And the big thing with credit cards, the people who solicit you for a card are usually who you don't want a card from.
Oh, there you go. It's kind of like when you were younger and you were dating. The person that, that wanted to go out with you, you're like, "Oh, I don't want to go out with you." But the person who you didn't want to go out with, or they didn't want to go out with you, you're like, "I want that person."
Right.
Yes, that's the one I want to go out with. All right. So Clark.com, tell us what we can find there.
Clark.com is all about your wallet. Everything we do, podcasts, social media, what I do on TV, what I do on radio, everything is about ways that you can be empowered so you spend less money day to day. A lot of stuff in life is so confusing. You should see our cell phone comparison plan guide. Instead of just by rote paying Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, whatever they're charging you, I've got this tool we put a lot of effort into where you can put in how many lines you need in your family, how you use your phone and all that. And we'll show you the choices, every one of them, precisely for you, for your exact situation or your family's situation. And you'll save tons of money. I mean, not a little bit of money, tons of money by knowing the deals that you're not being told about.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, unless you're really focused on tracking this stuff down, which obviously you are, and it's such an honor and pleasure. God, you are so cheap. I'm going to tell Craig. He's so right. God, Clark is the cheapest guy I've ever met. Okay,
Craig does really have a hard time understanding me.
Okay, so let me one question. Okay, You're out to dinner. Okay.
Yeah.
It's your anniversary.
Right.
It's a big number. It's a 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, whatever it may be.
Right.
And there's the $50 bottle of champagne. There's the $25 bottle of champagne. Okay, maybe not 50, not 25. There's a $50 split bottle of champagne. So you're going to get one or two glasses out of the thing. Or you got a $150 bottle of champagne, or this is a big one, so you're going to spend $250 on a bottle of champagne. Which one are you getting?
None of the above. What are you thinking? We're not spending that money. My goodness. No, if we want to have something to drink, we have it before we go to the restaurant. If we go to the restaurant, my wife might have one glass of wine. I won't even order at a restaurant. I don't drink alcohol usually. I won't even order like a Coke Zero, which is my favorite drink, if it costs too much. I'll just drink tap water at the restaurant. I mean, come on. In the Bermuda Triangle of restaurants, dessert. Oh man, the profit margins that restaurants make on dessert? No way. We'll go have dessert somewhere else later if we're going to have dessert. So, I can tell you, you and I, you could go with your husband, I go with my wife to the same restaurant, and then we could compare bills later, and you'd be like, how did he do that?
You know what? Although I will tell you, last night we went out to dinner, and they said, "Are you celebrating anything?" And I said, "Oh, it's his birthday."
So you got your free dessert. I love it.
Once again, Clark, thanks for being here. Everybody, you need to check out Clark.com. Look at all the tools that he's got hanging out there. Make sure that you sign up for his free newsletter, follow his show, sign up for his podcast, his YouTube channel. Because I guarantee you, I'm going to start paying more attention, Clark, because I think I need to start saving some money.
Well, it's got to be what you're inspired by, not feel guilty about. Always with money. It's got to be, I really want to do this. Not like, oh, I just felt bad that I spent all that money. No, it's got to be inspirational and fun and positive. People look at, like, you ever say to somebody, you should have a budget. That's mean. That's like cold. That's whatever. It's got to be a mentality that you want to have.
Okay.
So
I'll work on that.
Your life's working for you just like you're doing it. Keep doing what you're doing.
I am. I'm not flying coach. Okay, just not flying coach.
That's where you'll find me.
This program is a copyrighted production of Westar Multimedia Entertainment and protected by the copyright laws. Any rebroadcast or use of this program for commercial, business, economic, or financial purposes without the written permission of Westar Multimedia Entertainment is strictly prohibited.